Hi, everybody. We're on our second half of the video where we're going to get serious about important trans issues and social implications of transphobia and stuff. But if you haven't watched part one, where we're talking about life and some other things, and it's a little bit lighter topic, then you should definitely, well, anyway, fuck you. You should just head over to Colette's channel anyway and just watch the first half no matter what. You're not allowed to watch this half until you watch this half, until you watch that half. Okay, anyway.
Yes, people, prepared to laugh, cry, and even throw up a little.
Well, definitely throw up a little bit. This article that I found is really, really disgusting, like the contents of it. And I'm of course talking about the New York Times article.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's actually like an opinion piece, not an article. But in any case, it's really gross, and I'm absolutely astounded that an article like this made it into society, like, or sorry, made it into society, made it into the New York Times. Like, what the fuck is the editor thinking? I don't get it.
Yeah, because you think like well, I don't know about the New York Times. Maybe it is like more. Maybe it's to sell papers, because right now, like with Caitlyn Jenner, with like all this like trans spotlight on the media, it's kind of a way to like drive sales, drive papers, because it's like it's such a hot button issue. It's like, well, let's show like a opposite view to kind of stir up a little shit, because people are really, I mean, it's something that, like, what was it? Do you know the performer, the entertainer Seth MacFarlane? He created like Family Guy, and he's also like a singer and stuff like that. He said some, I guess like years ago, like on the Family Guy show, they made some jokes about Bruce Jenner becoming a woman.
Oh, really?
And like, yeah, and they were asking him about it like recently, and he's like, I'm not going to comment on it because this is such a hot button topic that no matter what I say, it's going to be taken the wrong way. So I choose not to say anything about it. And as some time has gone on, then we'll talk about it. And I'm like, that's actually really, really smart. And I'm like, now that makes you think of this article you're going to share, because I'm like, well, it makes sense that they're probably putting this in here to like piss us off, and people are like going to go to their website and read it. And, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I should have like copied and pasted that text. Don't go to well, I mean, you can go there, you can go wherever you want, but fuck the New York Times anyway. If you have a subscription, you should totally cancel it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Don't click on any of their sponsor links, or yes, don't click on any of their sponsor links. They're advertisements. Okay. Anyway. So let's get to this dirty article. And the article is present to everyone. Okay, can you see the article?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so the article is called "What Makes a Woman," and hold on a sec. The article is called "What Makes a Woman," and basically this, I guess, elderly feminist decided to write an article that is kind of like, it's kind of like one of those times when you say like we're like so happy for like we really support you, but, or I'm not racist, but this is kind of like an I'm not transphobic, but so you can read it all yourself, of course, and this is saying that sort of the first point is just rejecting Bruce Jenner's being a hero. There we go. Rejecting Bruce Jenner being a hero, and first of all, do you agree with that? Do you think that? Well, what do you feel? I mean, do you feel that Bruce Jenner is a hero, or?
Yeah, like when I saw the Vanity Fair cover of Caitlyn, I was like gobsmacked, because first of all, I thought she looked like just physically unbelievable. Like her photographer, her makeup artist, her hair. I thought she looked beautiful. I thought she looked vulnerable. It kind of like, if I was gonna like put myself out publicly like that, I would totally want to be on the cover of Vanity Fair. I mean, why not? I mean, there's no way of escaping what her public persona is. But I think what she did was incredibly brave, because, I mean, she has so much she can lose. Yes, like she's rich and she's got all this stuff or whatever, but she has this family, she has a reputation, has all this stuff, and she's a prime target. I mean, she's a lightning rod, and yeah, her lifestyle and where she comes from is not the majority of most trans people. Like, my reality is not Caitlyn Jenner's reality. I don't have like gobs of money. I don't have like, you know, celebrities supporting me, you know, so I know there's that divide there. But at the same time, her visibility, it directly helped me in my transition at work. Like at work, like people at my job had no inkling of transgender people. And then when I came out and then the Bruce Jenner interview happened, it was just like, my coworkers had a whole new understanding. And they were like contacting me at my new job saying, oh my God, did you see the Caitlyn Jenner thing? Oh my God, this is amazing. And it totally changed people's lives. So I think it was incredibly brave. That's my take.
Yeah, I think it was brave, but I had this this cousin on Facebook, and she posted one of those links that was like, Bruce Jenner is not really a hero, and somebody else on the Olympic team like went to the Iraq war and got his like arm blown off or his leg blown off or something, and then despite that he's like back in sports or something like this. And just kind of just seeing that, I was like I really don't understand, like, you're not a hero because you didn't like go and get your body parts blown off in Iraq fighting for oil money, like that, then suddenly you have to be a hero to do that. I don't understand this.
Yeah. Now, and see, that's the thing where like giving awards is kind of shitty, because it's like everyone's going to have a different view on like, what was it? Like, I think it was Madonna that said, because like Kanye West gets so upset at award shows or something, and she says, if you're looking at award shows to give you some sort of validation or some sort of justice, then you're really barking up the wrong tree. And that's kind of how I feel about award shows. They're giving an award, and maybe they're jumping on the like Jenner like bandwagon or whatever, but at the same time, I'm just like, what makes something else brave and something else not brave, and how do you judge it? Because it's an award that's given out. Like, I don't really understand. I understand like why like there's some sort of visibility behind it, but I think like, I mean, it's just like going to see a movie. You might respond really well to a certain movie and be like, oh my God, this movie's amazing, I would give it an Oscar. But then it's like not even in like the Oscar race. And it's like, how does this happen? But it's just kind of like, I don't know, like, why does it really matter? And how can you say something else is heroic and something else isn't heroic? I don't know. And I mean, if they're going to like draw a boundary saying this guy who got his arm blown off is a hero, but Caitlyn Jenner isn't, well, like, let's talk about everyday people that no one even talks about who save lives every day. You know, like, it's a slippery slope.
Well, no, but I think there is still like there's a usefulness in being able to say that something is heroic and something is not. I personally kind of reject it on the grounds that like it is heroic what Caitlyn Jenner is doing, and that's because, okay, like whatever guy was going to Iraq to fight, I guess what most Americans think are like the terrorists, but actually it was just like, you know, some kind of dirty war again. But regardless, even if you thought that that war was a just war and should have been fought and all that stuff, and that is a heroic act to go and fight in this war, like, it's also a heroic act. Like, the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that transphobia hurts people so much, and it doesn't just hurt trans people, it hurts cis people as well, because of transphobia and because of homophobia, but not so much anymore since it's starting to lessen. You have these people that go and live their entire lives as lies, and in Caitlyn Jenner's case, you know, she got married to at least a couple of different women, and I think actually 3 women, I'm not sure, and had a family and like lived a lie. And like, what about those women who are like having their I'm not so sure about the last wife, the Kardashian lady, but
Mhm.
the first two anyway, at least, I read some articles on this. Like, what about them? Like, they're getting their time wasted and their life is being impacted by this as well. And it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for transphobia being the way that it is. So by stopping and reducing transphobia, you're saving people's lives. You're saving people's time and people's emotions and everything like that. And that's not really that much different than going over and supposedly liberating people. But, you know, obviously in Iraq, that's kind of a poor example.
Well, no, I completely agree with you, because what I think it was absolutely heroic for what she did is, if you look at, like, earlier this year, you saw that Leela Alcorn chick threw herself in front of a bus. I mean, just recently in the past couple of months here in California too, like, I think they were high schooler trans kids killed themselves. I mean, like, it just, the amount of younger kids that are in the LGBT umbrella have taken their lives. I recently just saw an article about another person, and it's like, since I've like been on YouTube, it's just the transphobia, the bullying, just by Caitlyn Jenner being so visible, it raises awareness on economic statuses for people who are trans, health issues. I mean, just amounts of things. Like, even just uttering the word transgender and seeing a transgender person on a magazine, it's going to open someone's mind. It's just, and just how she's presented herself and how she's, you know, kind of bonded her family together. I mean, I think it's gonna save lives. I think it's gonna bring people together. I like pray that my family watches that stuff and sees her on the cover of Vanity Fair, and maybe they'll freaking give me a call and like stop disowning me. But you just, you know, I think it is brave. It's exactly what you were saying. How is it different? It, just because one person is visible and they're coming out and being authentic self, I mean, it's going to help people across the board. I don't think people think like that. I don't think they think big picture. They just think, why are they giving Bruce Jenner an award? You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. But I also have to think, and like on some level, it's just kind of like what we're seeing in this article, which is this kind of thinly veiled hate speech.
I agree.
Okay, but let's just move to the next part of this article. Okay, can you see my screen again?
I see blackness. Oh, now I see it.
Okay. So, basically, Caitlyn Jenner starts speaking about, you know, wanting to have regular girls' nights about, with including banter about hair and makeup. When asked about how things have changed, you know, or Chelsea Manning commented that, you know, I'm much more aware of my emotions and much more sensitive emotionally and physically. And this feminist is saying that, you know, she winced because of that, and she fought for 68 years to take women out of boxes, and saying that there's, you know, stereotypes, and that that, you know, everyone has self-determination, and it's just such a tragedy that people are buying into this notion that minor differences in male and female brains lead to major forks in the road, and that some sort of gender destiny is encoded in us. And then that's the kind of nonsense that was used to repress women for centuries, but the desire to support people like Miss Jenner and the journey toward their truest self has strangely and unwittingly brought it back. So I'll turn off screen share now. Again, we can talk about that. Okay.
I just find that really interesting because I don't know, like, I had this chat with my therapist a while ago because she's bisexual and she's very, very feminine. I mean, she likes makeup, she likes all that stuff that I guess you would consider girly. And she got a lot of shit from it from lesbians. They were saying, you're just being taken advantage of in the patriarch society. Like, they didn't like that she wore makeup because it was being oppressive to her. And there's like some other girl I know that I'm friends with in San Francisco, her boyfriend feels this way. that he doesn't like her wearing makeup, feeling like she has to. It's this oppression thing. And in my opinion, I'm like, I take it as the other way. Like, and I even feel weird talking about when I was little and how I was basically like all the other little girls around me. I was one of them. I was into the same things. I feel weird saying that because it's somehow I'm saying like all young little transgender girls are this way. Like they're into like pink and it's not the case. And so that's why I'm like, what that lady's saying in her article, like even for me as a trans person, like lately I feel uncomfortable talking about how I started to become aware of myself, because I feel like people are going to assume like I just thought, oh, I like pink, I like the color pink, and I like to wear makeup, so obviously I must be a girl. No, that's it's not that simplistic.
Well, no, it's obviously not that simplistic, but like on the other hand, like we had I had a couple of feminist friends, and we just got into talking about stuff, and I was like, they were talking about what do you notice, and I was like, well, I basically said that. I said like I'm much more sensitive emotionally, and it's just something that that I've noticed. I mean, it's undeniable. Like when my estrogen levels go crazy, like I start bawling at like the smallest thing. Like there's a definite effect that it has on your body. You know, you grow breasts from taking estrogen. I mean, come on now, like you can't pretend that these hormones aren't like influencing your brain as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and I think that like when people say emotionally and feeling physically, all that stuff, like it's about connection. Like how I always explain it, like my therapist, when I first started seeing her, I said, I feel like I've been living my life just outside my body the whole time, just distracted. Like I was never really aware that I wasn't in my body. It was only during intimate moments where I felt vulnerable did I realize that I was not in my body. I was not connected to it. And when I had to be connected to it, I felt such hatred. And I didn't want to look at myself. I wanted anything to not have to ever be in the presence of myself, if that makes sense. And when I started on my process and I started on hormones, it was the first time where I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually in my body. I'm feeling things. When I look at myself in the mirror, I'm not feeling like rage or like hate and just pity. Like I feel empowered. And to me, makeup, hair, all that stuff, like I've worked in the beauty industry and I see it as empowering. I don't see it as oppression. I guess to me, when I think of feminism, I think of it as equality, not as like women against anything that's patriarchal. I just think it as everyone living the life and the journey they want to live, whatever that is. And I don't know, those things that people seem to hold on to, like the beauty industry, I can understand it being oppressive, but it can also be incredibly empowering. Like for trans women, when they finally get to wear what they want to wear, when like someone who's a cancer survivor, they used to come to the makeup counter and you do their makeup and they feel beautiful. I mean, there's so many different examples that when I see that, I'm just like, when I see what she's saying in her article, I'm like, she's making everything so simplistic, like black and white, and it's not that way. And feminism to me is not that way. It's equal. It's equal playing ground for everyone. So I don't know.
I mean, I kind of was very discouraged from I definitely would never call myself a feminist, at least with my current understanding of it, because I think it's very why do they call it feminism? Why don't they just call it humanism? You know, like why? It just seems to me like it's also kind of like maybe kind of like the Conservative Party or the Republican Party in the United States. And like a lot of those people are kind of guilty by association with like the really extreme Tea Party people, for example. And and I think at that point you kind of have to clean up your camp, you know, or you need to stop. Like there needs to be more than one party. You know, like that's the biggest problem in the U.S. I think, is that you guys only have 2 political parties, and you guys really should have like at least 4 parties. There should at least be like the more conservative Democrats, the less conservative Democrats, and the more conservative Republicans and the less conservative Republicans, because the way it is now, like I don't even know what the fuck you're supposed to be voting for, because there's so much diversity in the parties, you know?
Well, and with political standings, like politics are just so weird because you really don't, when you vote for someone, they can only do so much. And I think people seem to think like when they elect a president, like that president's like, oh, they lied, they didn't do anything that they said they were going to do. It's like, no, I have an understanding that the government is just, it's a huge complex entity, and to get anything changed takes years because you have to go through a due process system. And it's not the president making decisions, it's all the minions underneath him. And then it's like, will you do this favor for me? I'll let you pass this bill. Well, okay, if you pass this bill, then I want you to do this for me. And it's just like this whole weird game that goes on. And it's like the government's supposed to be about the people, and the people are never heard. Because you're right, there's only two parties. And usually the people that are like the candidates are usually just the puppets. And it's all the other people behind them telling them, no, you need to say this, you need to say this. And I agree. I think there needs to be more parties for sure.
Well, yeah, actually, actually, I know that politics is really one of those subjects that you can really fall off the cart with and go on a totally different path. But the reason I was making that point wasn't so much about U.S. politics. It was just the fact that I think that feminist is kind of too vague a label now, and you need to start either saying you're a whatever type of feminist, or like there's not really much point in saying you're a feminist. Like what's the point in saying you're a Christian? What does that mean? You could be like those crazy Coptic Christians in Egypt. You could be an Orthodox Russian Christian. You could be a Catholic. You could be one of those crazy what do you call them, Baptists or whatever, that think that they can like speak with God and shit. And then like or faith healing and all that stuff with Peter Popov and whatever. And then there's like Anglicans. Like there's so many different types. Like what is the point? It's just such a pointless description. And it really bothers me. Like people do this with Christian as well. Like for a long time, like I think even now still, like it's like people just say I'm a Christian, and you're like, can you elaborate on that? Oh, I just believe in Jesus and shit. Well, like, I don't know, like, I feel like it's the same thing with feminism. I'm a feminist. What do you mean? Oh, I believe in equality and shit. Like, I guess, but like, you realize that there's a lot of people that say, I'm a feminist. What do you mean? Oh, I mean that the patriarchy is a huge conspiracy, and that women are like horribly oppressed, and that like there's no biological determinism, and it's all in your head, and hormones aren't real and shit. Like, people say that shit too. So like, I think that you need to be a bit more specific when you put a label to yourself like that.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with you on that. And it's interesting to me because what was that? Like, I don't know if you've noticed it, but I just kind of feel like right now in our culture that it's all about kind of finding the gotcha thing. Like, gotcha, like you're kind of like shining the spotlight on something kind of negative, and like we're kind of trying to do a witch trial or something, like let's burn these people at the stake. And I've kind of noticed like that's everything I notice on social media. And it's like you can't say anything now without it being like, oh, you're being oppressive, you're tearing someone down, it's this, it's that. It's like this word police thing. And I don't know, I feel like it kind of questions people's personal freedoms. Like, because to me, it's like you said, being a humanist or whatever you want to call it. I'm about people doing what that is that they want to do. I believe that for animals and for people. Like, let them be who they're meant to be. And why does it need to be like, no, this means it's oppressive? Well, to you, it's oppressive because in your mind, that's how you associate it. But to me, I don't put that personal issue on it. To me, it's nothing. So I feel like a lot of it's just subjective. It's not really real, if that makes sense. It's only real to the person that feels that way, I guess. That's how I think of it. It's like, oh, I don't know, wearing a bra and wearing fake hair, you're being oppressed because you're giving into society. It's like, well, no, to you, you might think that, but I wear a bra because it hurts, my back hurts, and I want longer hair. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm trying to like let people know like, oh, I'm a part of society. So I don't think that deeply, I guess you could say, like on a day-to-day basis. I just go about my day. I don't get up in the morning and be like, I'm an oppressed woman, and you know what I mean? Like,
mean, that being said, though, I think that there definitely are like some elements of like as a woman, I feel like I feel more shame about certain things. I definitely like as a guy, I could just go like totally disheveled and like sweaty and gross and stuff, and I'd be like, whatever, people can think what they want, fuck them. And then like, but now like, there's no way. Like now, like it's terrifying the thought of going out and having people look at you and being like, look at that dirty tranny. Like, I mean, like there's some level of oppression going on there, that's for sure. I mean, I do like wearing makeup and stuff and feeling pretty and stuff sometimes, but sometimes that's also like, wow, as a boy, I could kind of like just get away with a lot of shit that like I can't get away with now. So,
But then if you think of it in that terms, like boys that like to wear makeup and maybe be a little bit more on the feminine side, it's like then they feel shame for wanting to feel like a girl or to kind of give into those feelings. So I kind of see it as, I mean, it's kind of the same either which way you look at it. Like women feel shame if they are disheveled, and like young boys might feel shame like feeling feminine at all, you know. And it's like there's some phrases like when you hear people say, well, you know, I don't have a lot of female friends, I'm not one of those girls, like you know, I'm more of like a guy's girl, or you know, I'm not a girl, I'm not into that, I'm into like shooting and stuff like that. When I hear that, it's kind of a slight at girls that are really girly girl and feminine. It's like, oh yeah, they're kind of like, you know, flick them away, like, because, you know, I'm not like one of those girls. I'm like, that's so shitty. Like, to me, that's kind of shitty to other females. It's like, oh, I'm not into that. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of slighting other girls, you know? I don't know.
but I feel like girls in general are a little bit more apt to kind of like put each other down and stuff. It just
Oh
seems
God, yeah.
that's
Oh hell yeah. I don't like when I like all the jobs I've had, and I've worked with like a majority of different types of people, like just regular straight dudes, I could say, like that I've worked with, they were like so easygoing, so like they really didn't talk. They talk shit and stuff, but it wasn't like, I mean, girls can get straight up evil. Like, I mean, there was one girl I used to work with recently, and just how she talked about other women in the office, I was like, damn, I've never heard dudes talk about other dudes nasty. You know what I mean? Like, so cutting like that. And I'm like, damn, women are vicious. Like,
that's kind of what I mean, though. Is like, and like this is something that like you notice, right? And then like, I think,
yeah.
like, but then it's kind of weird to turn around and then say that like it's just it's not, there's nothing biological involved. It's just like oppression or something like that. I don't really like seeing it.
I think men and women I think we're biologically different. I think we're the same in some respects, like with maybe our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations, certain attributes, certain personality things, but hormones make you different. I don't, like, just from what I've understand, like with testosterone in my body, with having estrogen in my body, I can tell there's a divide. And when my boyfriend and I have rifts, I know that's just because we think differently. And it's, you're right, hormones, I do believe, affect your brain, because how I see it all over, how women approach things in general, like how they approach a situation is vastly different on how a man approaches a situation. So it honestly really depends. Like, I've seen some of the most amazing bosses I've had that are women, they look at the whole big picture. They're able to piece everything together. They think ahead so everything runs smoothly. And I've worked with some male bosses that are usually pretty linear thinking. They forget about everything else and they're focused on the goal. And that can lead us into trouble sometimes. And other times it's awesome because they can make a split decision. Like, they don't think about it like, we're doing this. And so I know that men and women think differently. And I think they approach their emotions much differently because of cultural, societal things. So when people say that it's not biological, I think it's full of shit. I think it is. You see it in nature. You see how you see how female and the male in nature and certain species, they interact differently. Like, you see it in like with deer, all the women are congregated together. The men are off sitting under a tree far away as the women are all together. You see that in nature. They're different. They're wired different.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
get over here.
but my point is that this granny feminist person is like she, she she's saying that like by saying that we're kind of threatening women or something like that, and that's the crux of the argument, I think.
Well, I think she also I don't think she realizes that the majority of America don't think that deeply. You know what I mean? Like, I'm serious.
Yep. Okay, so can you see my screen again?
No. Yeah, I can.
Okay. So that's the kind of nonsense that represses women. People who've lived people who haven't lived their whole lives as women, whether Ms. Jenner or Ms. Summers, shouldn't get to define us. That's something men have been doing for much too long. And as much as I recognize and endorse the right of men to throw off the mantle of maleness, they cannot stake their claim to dignity as transgender people by trampling on mine as a woman. Their truth is not my truth. Their female identities are not my female identity. They've traveled through the world as they haven't traveled through the world as women and have been shaped by all that entails. They haven't suffered business meetings with men talking to their breasts or woken up after sex terrified they forgot to take their birth control the day before. They haven't had to cope with the onset of their periods in the middle of a crowded subway, the humiliation of discovering that their male work partner's checks are far greater than theirs, or the fear of being too weak to ward off rapists. For me and many women, feminists and otherwise, one of the difficult parts of witnessing and wanting to rally behind the movement of transgender rights is the language that a growing number of trans individuals insist on, the notions of femininity that they're articulating, and their disregard for the fact that being a woman means having accrued certain experiences, endured certain indignities, and relished certain courtesies in a culture that reacted to you as one. So that's...
I don't know, like, she can say, like, you know, she can say those things about how, like, I mean, she's completely valid in her description about, like, what women have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but has she ever walked the shoes of a Black transgender woman? Has she ever had to live in poverty as a little Black boy and then come out as a transgender female of color and had to go through the world that way? I mean, if she's going to start, like, pointing fingers at certain oppression, it's like, you say that, like, you know, transgender female don't understand the, you know, menstruation or having to take your birth control and shit like that. But then she doesn't realize that a lot of trans women are put into sex work. They end up getting HIV. They get raped. They get beaten. They get thrown out of their homes. They get burned. And other countries, like especially like in South America, like the atrocities against trans women is, I mean, it's so unbelievable. So to me, saying who's more oppressed, who's not oppressed, it's like, no, we're all oppressed. Like, I guess I don't understand her argument. Like, she's saying men talking to your breasts and this and that. It's like, well, if you're gonna play that game, I'm pretty sure someone can throw a card out and be like, well, listen, bitch, this is my day to day. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of
most transgender women don't even get a check. Like, she's talking about men getting paid more. Well, a lot of them don't even have jobs and they're doing sex work. I mean, really? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's also kind of dismissive of what about the younger trans girls who transition before puberty? You're saying that their experiences aren't like almost exactly like what a cis woman would have? Like, it's almost, it's like the same thing. Like, that's just saying that like every transgender woman is the same as Caitlyn Jenner and comes out at like 60, whatever. Like, that's not true for people who transition younger, and even for you and I, for example, or you and me, for example. I don't think it's valid to say that we don't have to experience this sort of stuff, because we do.
Well, and the women that are more visible, like in the trans community, they're women of privilege. So what she's seeing is she's not seeing a diverse community of trans women. She's only seeing a select few, and usually the ones that you see interviewed on TV and on magazine articles are usually beautiful. They're in the entertainment industry, and they're have a privileged lifestyle, if she were to talk to more people that are living day to day like you and I, she might be like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like maybe I think she's thinking more linearly. She's not really looking at, in her article, she needs to look more at a broad spectrum of females, because even her assumption of how women are is really convoluted, because there's such a variety of women out there. Not all women are the same, you know?
I totally agree. And on to the next part.
Yeah. I don't want to do anymore. You can't make me do this.
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding.
It's like homework or something, right? Okay, brains are a good place to begin, because one thing that science has learned about them is that they're in fact shaped by experience, culture, and otherwise. The part of the brain that deals with navigation is enlarged for London taxi drivers, as is the region dealing with the movement. Fingers on your left hands of violinists. And you can't pick up a brain and say that it's a girl's brain or a boy's brain, says some neuroscientist. And the difference between male and female brains are caused by the drip, drip, drip of the gendered environment, she said. The drip, drip, drip of Miss Gender's experience included a hefty dose of male privilege few one could possibly imagine, and then a bunch of stuff about how Bruce is so lucky, and then a bunch of stuff about you know, how bad it is for a lot of women, and those are the realities that shape a woman's brain. And I think that's kind of what we were just talking about. But just moving on a little bit, though. Basically, she's just kind of saying that she's saying that that our experience is not valid, basically. And you know, you can go back and you can read all of this, and she even uses the South Park race argument. Imagine the reaction if a young white man suddenly declared that he was trapped in the body, and after using chemicals to change in the wrong body, and after using chemicals to change his skin pigmentation and crocheting his hair into twists, expected to be embraced by the Black community. And I find it absurd that in the New York Times, you know, someone can, in the New York Times, somebody can use the South Park anti-trans argument and and have this article somehow make it past the editor. I just don't understand it.
I agree too, because as you go through it, I'm just like, where are her references? Like, where is she pulling this from? I mean, even she tries to says that this one university professor or scientist says about the brain. I'm just like, none of this is research. This is just something that she's having a stream of consciousness putting on a piece of paper, because I don't even know. It's hard to argue with it when I don't really feel like it's a well researched article. She needs more, I guess you could say, footnotes. I don't know. I need research and evidence backing up why she's coming up with these ideas.
Well, and that's kind of what bothers me, though, is that this is a piece that was in the New York Times and showed up all over my Facebook, and a lot of people were saying shit like, yeah, totally, like this is bullshit, like, and it's like, I don't understand. Like, it's very dangerous that this sort of stuff is sort of somehow making it into the mainstream.
I honestly, I don't know if this is just a dumb idea. I mean, if I'm wrong, whatever. I wonder if it's just because on Vanity Fair she came out and she looked gorgeous, and she's wearing a corset. She had her boobs pushed up. She looked like a sex goddess, and I think that it pissed off a lot of trans women, because a lot of them, they think when they come out they're going to be like this gorgeous woman, and they end up just looking like, you know, who they were before, and maybe not as quote unquote popular, attractive as they hoped in their head. So there's this sort of jealousy with that, because like, well, of course she has all this money, she can look like this. And then I think women, cisgendered women, activist feminist women see her and they're just like, what the fuck? Like, she looks like this, and so this is what they think. This is what they think is what a woman should look like. So I look like a dog. And like, one of my friends, she wouldn't watch RuPaul's Drag Race because she said it makes me feel bad as a woman when I see these young gay boys look more attractive as women than I do. And I didn't mean to slight her, but I said, "Are you fucking kidding me? This is all entertainment. It's fluff. Like the torture that they put their bodies through to make themselves look remotely women. I mean, to me, it's like, no, like they're taking what a woman looks like and making this extreme version of her. And they know, most drag queens know, women do not look like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
It makes me really heated. Because I'm just one of those people that's like, I'm not going to let anyone else define me. I'm just going to live my life. And when I walk into a room, I'm not going to walk into a room like I'm a transgender woman. I'm just going to walk into a room. You know what I mean? Like when I transitioned, it was all up for me and how I wanted to feel connected inside, and how if I have surgery and do this and that, I'm not going to feel guilty because it's for me. I'm not doing it for anyone else. Like, when you start learning the risks of transitioning, it's not something that you just go, oh, this will work, I'll be okay. No, like, I mean, every woman wants to look attractive. Even, like, what did they expect her to sit on Vanity Fair looking like kind of tore up? I mean, I think if she looked tore up, people would be like, oh, bless her, she's really trying. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, but the fact that
I just back up a sec though, because like I actually didn't find her super attractive. I was like, it's not that I found her unattractive, and I thought that she looked very good for her age, but I was kind of like, what the fuck is a 60-year-old woman doing on the cover of Vanity Fair? Is there any precedent for this? Like, that kind of felt weird to me.
Yeah, no, and I think that if she would have gone on there just dressed kind of like how we've been seeing her in the media with like a ponytail and like, I don't know, I think that's what people were expecting. And so the fact that she, like, that's the vision that she had of herself as this glamour puss, I think it really pissed people off. I think people have a problem with that. I don't think it's so much of the fact of the things that she said in her interview. Of course they're going to pick that apart, but at the same time, I honestly think it was because of how she appeared on the cover. I think if she would have looked more like Bruce per se, I think it wouldn't be a topic.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's the other thing is that, you know, I was reading some posts on Reddit and stuff like that about this, and people are saying like that's the ultimate like bullshit, is that like when feminists want to be like lipstick feminists and they want to look all girly and stuff, then it's like empowering. But when a trans woman does it, it's oppressive. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, that's actually what I was thinking. Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. Like, how come it only is one way? Life is not that way. There's many varieties. There's many diversities. It's not, I don't understand that. That's why when I hear feminists talk like that, I'm just like, I don't really think that they're feminists. I think, what's the word for it? Elitists, or what is that word? Pretentious. I don't really see them as what it's supposed to be, you know? I thought like feminisms were fighting for oppression and that you can live the life you want. It doesn't mean that you have to be like this, you know, hairy armpitted whatever. Like, you can be whatever woman you see yourself to be, I guess.
Well, on to the next piece of this lovely piece of literary work.
No.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like finishing your broccoli, huh? You're actually until you finish your transphobia. Okay.
I'm gonna finish this and get gassy.
Okay, so many women I know of all ages and races speak privately about how insulting we find the language trans activists use to explain themselves. After Miss Jenner talks about his brain, one friend called it an outrage and asked in exasperation, "Isn't he saying that he's bad at math, weeps during bad movies, and is hardwired for empathy?" After the release of the Vanity Fair photo, Ms. Jenner, Susan Ager, a Michigan journalist, wrote on her Facebook page, "I fully support Caitlyn Jenner, but I wish she hadn't chosen to come out as a sex babe." And I think that's kind of what you're just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, we bite our tongues and try not to express, blah, blah, blah. And there's one other long, so let's just address a couple of more points. Of course, you guys can read this piece of garbage on the New York Times if you want to. Subject yourself to it anyway. I wanted to bring up this point, talking about the vagina monologues and supposedly being broken up by feminists. And there was another point here that they're speaking about the word she's saying that why, like, this is ridiculous. They're using the word vagina as being exclusionary, and what else should we call it? And then also saying that the word woman has come under assault by some of the very people who claim the right to be considered women. The hashtags Stand with Texas Women, popularized after Wendy Davis, then a state senator, attempted to filibuster the Texas legislature to prevent passage of a draconian anti-abortion law. And we trust women are also under attack since they too are exclusionary. And I think that's the next point here, which you might find quite interesting. Abortion rights and reproductive justice is not a women's issue, wrote Emmett Stauffer, one of the many self-described transgender persons to blog on the topic. It is a uterus owner's issue. Mr. Stauffer was referring to the possibility that a woman who is taking hormones and undergoing surgery to become a man, or undergoing surgery to become a man, or who does not identify as a woman can still have a uterus, become pregnant, and need an abortion. And accordingly, there was pressure to change the wording on that. Now, I'm going to get this screen share off. Okay. So I don't know how you feel about that. I think that it's very dismissive of trans men, and I think that my personal opinion on it is that it's kind of like that in that trans music festival in Michigan. I think that is ending or whatever because they're transphobic, and a lot of the performers and sponsors, I'm not sure about sponsors, but a lot of the performers, like the Indigo Girls or whatever, I think pulled out of it because of their transgender woman exclusionary policy. But at the same time, they actually welcome trans men. So at the same time as saying that trans women are really men, they're also saying that trans men are actually really women. And I think that this type of language that's so dismissive is really absurd. Like, yeah, it's possible that a trans man could need an abortion. So you probably shouldn't just leave them out. And just because historically there hasn't been much recognition of trans people and the fact that we exist, it doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. I mean, like vocabulary can change, and the definition of a man and a woman can change too. I just don't see why it's so absurd. Like, why is it so important to hang on to this rigid definition of what makes a man and what makes a woman?
Yeah, I agree, because life has changed. Life is constantly changing. Things are evolving, culture's changing. I mean, so the idea of having to keep on keeping rigid ideas is kind of, you're going to get lost. You're going to get left in the shuffle because you can't stop change. It happens. It's just a part of how everything goes. And if you choose not to be a part of it, well, then you have the consequences of kind of being left out of the continuum, I guess you could say. I agree. It was called, it's the Women's Michigan Music Festival. And you're correct about that. And I thought that that was really shitty because they're basically saying that trans men are not really men and trans women are essentially still men. And I just think that that's really shitty. I thought, like, one of my friends that used to be a performer there, and she thought it was really shitty that like trans people were making such a big stink about it. And she's like, I think it's just such a great place that there's one place in the world where women can just go and be with each other. And I said, well, that's fucked up because not all women are included. It's like saying, oh, we're going to have a women's festival, but Black women can't come. I mean, do you think like that would go over really well? You know what I mean? And it's like, no, if it's a women's festival, it should be for all women of all different types. And saying that trans men are welcome because they have vaginas is really fucked up. Yeah, I just think, I'm so glad it got shut down. And my friend used to perform there. I was just like, you're a dumbass. Like, you kind of lost respect points for me because you're telling me this as you're talking to a trans woman. Yeah. And another one of my friends is like, well, I like the idea of having a place that like men aren't allowed. And I looked at her, I'm like, I guess I just don't think that way. I'm like, I don't want to exclude anybody from anything.
Does she think you're a man? What's up with that? Does she consider you to be a man?
I don't know. I think it's just how people, I think it's really interesting because I think that people, even if they love you and they're your friends, I think that there's moments where they don't realize that they do have a prejudice in them, because people who say, oh, I'm not prejudiced, I don't discriminate, it's been indoctrinating you since you were a little kid, and it will come out in different moments. So when they made those comments, I'm like, there it is. You know what I mean? There's that like underlying like, oh, wait a minute. But yeah, no, I want a place where it's all women. I'm like, you're essentially agreeing with her then. You're saying that I'm not really a woman, so that makes sense why I can't go. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's interesting.
I like there's that aspect of it, the this sort of general prejudice aspect of it, but I'm sure that, like, at least for me, I've seen a couple of threads on Facebook, and also I've seen a couple of threads on other videos where there's more people commenting, and you get random people saying like the good old and trusty a woman is XY or XX and a man is XY, and that's it, and that's nature, and you're just sick, and you know you have to accept that you are who you are, and blah 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 blah. And this really bothers me, but what I find very interesting is that it often comes from sort of a little bit antisocial seeming guys, and I have to say that I kind of think it's a case of like the lady doth protest too much, methinks. And it reminds me kind of myself before, when I was deep in the closet. I would say transphobic stuff sometimes, and I would say homophobic stuff sometimes, just because I was like so stressed and so strung out, and I was like, I had so much like self-loathing, you know. And I feel like a lot of these people, like, I want to like look one of these people in the eyes and be like, are you actually trans? Is that what's going on? And just read their eyes and see what they're saying, because I think a lot of them would be like,
I agree.
like I don't know, I just feel like it's really telling when you get so many people that are so passionate about this. And if you look at the demographic that's the most vocal, they could definitely be closeted, and I think a lot of them are.
Well, if you look at the ones that are very anti-gay, they typically they always are found out to be having, like, I don't know, they find them on Grindr or the sex apps, like hooking up with dudes and stuff. So I always laugh. I'm like, of course, yeah, the most loud are usually the ones that are.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's just absurd. But anyway, that article is just so gross and so blatantly prejudiced. I still can't quite fathom why the New York Times allowed it to get past the editor. Even if it's just an opinion piece, like, why aren't they also giving opinion pieces to like ISIS sympathizers and the Ku Klux Klan and just these other extremists? Because, you know, this is essentially the same idea as racism. And you even have the same sort of language. I support trans people in their struggle, but I'm not really racist, but maybe black people should take better care of their kids. You know, it's just the same sort of language that's so telltale, and it's so transparent, I think, to minorities to see this. And from somebody saying that they're a feminist, you know, where feminism means that you stand for equal rights for everybody, and then also saying, but by the way, I have all these prejudices. I just it really bothered me to see that article, and so that's why I wanted to talk about it today.
No, I'm glad that you brought it up, because I think that, you know, it makes sense that there's going to be some sort of backlash, because, I mean, with the marriage equality stuff, and then on top of that, you have Caitlyn Jenner, you've got Laverne Cox, you've got, you know, the LGBT, what do they call it, the agenda. There's going to be backlash. There's going to be people that are like, you know, people are caring about these topics too much, and they're not caring about this. And to me, when I even hear gay people saying like, you know, we're more mainstream now, so it's pretty much safe to be who you are, I always say, no, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, there's the reason why it's so important, and it's so important for Caitlyn Jenner to be visible. It's because there are people around the world, even in America, that live lives that are terrifying day to day. I just read an article about this gay man in Utah that was forced to drink bleach that was burned with the word fag in his arm. I mean, this shit still happens all the time. So to me, it's like, no, just because you're hearing about it doesn't mean that it's cool now. It's still like, we still got a way to go. And obviously the article proves it, you know?
Yeah,
so I really brought it up.
Yeah. And I don't know. Anyway, I think we were going to touch on one last thing, which is a little bit darker.
No!
No, we shouldn't be laughing or smiling or anything. It's about suicide and
God.
and you're laughing. Oh my God, you're horrible.
I'm not laughing. It's just like, I'm just giggling. She's like, now it's going to get dark. And I'm like, get all your laughs out now.
Okay, it's laughing time right now. So, or I guess the first place to start is have you ever considered suicide?
No, actually, I haven't. I mean, there's those thoughts that occur on occasion when I'm having like a really bad time, and I would sometimes just think, God, but I always stop myself because the aftermath that would leave, like especially on my boyfriend, my animals, even my job, I can't, like, I have a lot of people that do care about me, and even if it's not my family, like I have people in my day-to-day that it would be really crushing to them, and I would honestly feel that when I have those moments that I would feel like I would let down my community or people who are cheering for me, because not that I'm slighting anyone who considers it or anyone who's even done it or attempted it, because I mean, to get to that place, I think you don't even think of anything. I think it's just like you're kind of swallowed in this hole of sadness. So for myself, I've been able to always pull myself before I got too far down, I guess you could say. So have you ever considered it?
I have actually, but I was just going to go back and ask you one follow-up question on that, which is like before when you were still not out as being trans, and you mentioned that you lived a very destructive lifestyle as a gay boy. Don't you think that's kind of a form of suicide, really? Because if you carried on down that path for that much longer, I mean, it's very likely that you would have ended up dead.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. I do think I see that as a form of suicide, because like just the risky behavior that I would give into and how I would be treating my body. I mean, I was asking for it if something came up, and I think that a part of me wanted it to happen because I never wanted to have to face myself. So I think there is some truth to that. I think that even if you haven't thought about hanging yourself or like doing something violent towards yourself, you're right. There's times when, you're drinking too much, you're smoking heavily, you're, engaging in risky stuff. I mean, you're basically doing the same thing. You're playing Russian roulette, and that's what I was doing. So I guess in a sense, yeah, I guess if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I have that history of very heavy drug use and heavy drinking and heavy smoking, eating terribly. There's a lot of bad things that I did to my body when I was younger. That it was honestly because, like, there's people and they try and act like all like badass, like I don't care if I live or die kind of thing. I really didn't care. It wasn't so much that I was trying to kill myself. It was just that I just didn't care. I was like, if I died tomorrow or I died 10 years from now, it doesn't matter. That was because that's just how shitty I felt. In a way, though, yeah, it's definitely a kind of suicide.
Yeah, because when you start transitioning and you start caring about like your future, it totally changes you, how you look at yourself, how you view your life, and you start to make more positive changes. And that's why I think to help prevent suicide in some ways is I think it's all about visibility, education, and how people approach their transition. Because like I wanted to ask you, why do you think a lot of people take their life in transition? Why do you think that?
Well, I've actually been in a situation where I was considering suicide, not just sort of a passive suicide that we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of, I had just lost my job, and I had a very, well, on paper anyway, a very prestigious position. And because I was so deep in the closet, the way that I dealt with it was kind of putting everything into my work, and I wasn't getting as much out of my work as I should have been, and that got me down. And so, in addition to that, I ended up, taking a lot of drugs and living a very hard lifestyle. I mean, we're talking going out and clubbing until 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and going to work every day at 8 in the morning, and
Wow.
eating McDonald's at work, and eating McDonald's out with some friends, and then going clubbing again, and taking off lunch break to go do lines of K with my friend. Like it got really bad, and anyway, around that time though, some major crisis stuff happened with my job in China, and I had to leave the country, and I was out of the culture that I'd been in for 10 years, and I, uh, uh, I ended up back in Canada, where I had no idea how to relate to my Canadian friends and stuff. I had one friend who was really nice to me, and I'm really thankful for that, obviously. But you know, uh, I was away from my girlfriend at the time, and I did love her, even though I'm trans, and I probably, if I'd been able to transition, wouldn't have been in a relationship with her. But anyway, I was, and I did care about her a lot. And I was away from her, and I was away from all my friends in China, and it was out of my culture. And I just felt like my life had already been as good as it was going to get, and it was just downhill from here. And I felt like I was going to end up, working, at McDonald's or something horrible like that, and going from being a manager of a dozen people and flying around to different cities every couple of weeks to going to a low-level job like that was just something that I couldn't imagine. In fact, it's kind of absurd that I was thinking that way, because I have reasonable skills and stuff, and it's pretty easy for me to get a job if I need one, a well-paying one. But in any case, it didn't matter, because I was just in this place where I thought that the wave had peaked, and it was just downhill from here. And what's the point? And it's just going to keep getting worse. Things were going bad. I had some savings and stuff that I was living on. That money was going away. Friends were kind of ignoring me and stuff because I was in a bad place, just smoking weed and playing video games all day. And I just saw like everything is just going worse and worse and worse, and I better just stop it before it gets so bad that I just can't take it anymore,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I was really considering suicide, and I went to a kind of a help center, and I went to speak with a therapist, and I just like immediately broke down in tears. And from then I got on some antidepressants and stuff, and slowly got better. But there was this one point when I was telling my grandmother that I had these suicidal thoughts, and she said to me like, "Oh, that's just so cowardly. You're so cowardly. Stop being cowardly." And like that was a real catalyst. That was a really dangerous couple of days, because my inclination was thinking like, I'm not a coward, you don't understand, and maybe to show you how much I'm not a coward, and this was my plan, I'm like, I'm just gonna like cut my stomach open and kill myself in the most painful way possible, and you can't say I'm a coward that way, so it was pretty serious.
Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, that's one thing I think someone who's in that sort of mindset does not want to hear. They don't want to hear like, oh, it's selfish and you're a coward. Oh, okay, thanks. That helps. Thank you.
Yeah.
I already feel like shit. That makes me feel even worse. Fabulous. Wow. But see, now at the end of the day, like, look where you're at now in your life. And if you would have done that then, I mean, you wouldn't have been able to meet like your boyfriend and, you know.
Oh, of course, it was totally stupid, uh, uh, but the point is that I think what people fail to realize about suicidal people or any mentally ill people is that um, crazy people aren't just like doing random shit and it doesn't make sense to them. They're like, what you're doing, it makes sense to you. It's a disease of the mind. So to the person who commits suicide, that is the right thing to do. They have all these different decisions and, oh, suicide, that's the best one. I should take it. And it makes sense to them.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Like, I don't know. I think that's the big reason why I do my YouTube channel and I put myself out there. And it's just because, like, I've mentioned this before, but since I've been on YouTube, I've known about 5 girls that have taken their lives. And, from YouTube, yeah.
Wow.
And, God, yeah, it's because I've been transitioning 6 years. So, yeah, I think it's been about 5 girls, I want to say. So, yeah, it's, to me, it's, it like tears me to shreds when like I read articles, especially when I see young girls taking their lives and stuff like that. It just, because I don't know, there's nothing like I feel like I can really do to prevent it, but it's shitty. Because it's weird because when I was that age and, you know, I know I was a weird kid, I was an outcast, and I I thought back to when I was that age, like, how did I feel? Because I had severe anxiety. I was very depressed. Like, I was bullied at work, and then I came home and I was bullied even more. So I never really got a break from, like, that sort of abuse. So I was thinking, like, how did I get through it? Like, what did I focus on? And I always focused on, like, the future. Like, soon I'll be graduating and I'll be going to college. I'm going to get the fuck out of this town. Like, and that's literally what I focused on. And when those times came, I was out. I was out that door at 17. And then when I went to college, I'm like, I want to get out the hell out of the Midwest. And so my next focus was, for the next year and a half, was to get out to California. And that's literally what and even with transition, when there was moments where I'm like, can I really do this? I would just focus on, like, the next step would be like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going to my therapist. I really like my electrologist. And eventually I'm going to get to a point where it's going to be easier and easier. And, you know, and then I got to where I'm at now. And I think back, I'm like, holy shit, I really made it. But it was because I did it piece by piece. I didn't think of, like, everything to overwhelm myself. And I think that probably was my saving grace. Because I think if I focused on everything and what I needed to do, every little thing, then I don't know what would have happened to me. You know?
Yeah, definitely. It's that's one of the things that my therapist sort of taught me to do, was to take it very, very easy, one step at a time, and make your first goals, like, so that they can't, you know, it's very difficult for them to fail. You just have to do one thing. And I think it's very common, though, this kind of thing. Like, I was reading something about meditation, and the recommendation from one prominent meditation expert, I don't know what the fuck they're called, but was to just take one deep breath a day. That's your goal, to take one deep breath a day. And then if you like it and you find it's helpful, then it will naturally come as more. And I think that's kind of the thing with like, when I was deep in depression, like, my goal, like, when I first started out, was to get up, wash myself, and make breakfast in the morning. That was my goal for the first week. And, like, being depressed and stuff, that was really actually tough to do. But when I was looking at it and thinking, this is the only thing that I have to do today, and then for the rest of the day I can smoke weed and just waste time and do whatever and feel sorry for myself, it was actually pretty easy to do that. And then from that, I kind of did one more thing. So I do think it's important to break things down like that. And if you're having sort of suicidal thoughts and stuff, and you're really depressed in a bad spot, and, like, when I was trying to sort of self-diagnose and self-help myself, what I would do is I would have these moments of clarity where I'd be like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I hate who I am. Like, I can do so much better than this. I'm not living up to my potential. And I would make this like grandiose plan of like, I'm going to do this and this and this, and then I'm going to do this. And then I would maybe work at it for 2 or 3 days, but then I would miss a goal and I just feel so bad that I just stop. I totally fall off the wagon. And it's really important not to look that far ahead when you're trying to get out of depression. I think it's really important to just make a very, very easy goal, very baby step, and then take another baby step along kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's why I think where it happens a lot with suicide is I think a lot of people tend to, especially in transition, I think they don't necessarily plan out their transition. I think a lot of them just think, okay, well, I'm just going to, if this is who I say I'm going to be, well, then tomorrow I'm going to be this new person. And then they forget that all these other people that they're around are going to be like, what the fuck? And they're going to look at you as such an unstable person. And I think that that's also like taking little bits as a time. I think it's the same thing with transition. I think it's, you just make tiny little goals each month that you can achieve or however long. And then, you know, you get to a point where you're able to do it with confidence. Like, that's why, like, everyone, I remember for so long they were saying, why haven't you come out yet? Why aren't you living full time? And I'm like, well, because I'm not ready yet. Like, I can't mentally just do it yet. And it wasn't until I followed my little steps and then I was able to be like, okay, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do it. Whatever happens, I'm good to go. And I've done that my entire transition, because even with surgeries and everything, like, I kept pushing back my SRS surgery, and I got some shit from some trans girls on YouTube. They're like, well, if I was given the opportunity, I would just go get it. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's a huge surgery, first of all. I'm going to be off my feet for 12 weeks. I got to figure out my life during that time, because it's not all about me. I have all these other responsibilities. Then I got to make sure I'm mentally ready to, like, handle, like, oh my God, I just had something done to myself. You know what I mean? Like, I can't, like, I have to be in a really good space to do this to myself. And I did not want to have the surgery and not be out at work and not living my life as me. So, you know, I took my time. And I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, totally. And by the way, you have to, I hope you share some things with me after surgery, because I'm very interested to know about a lot of stuff in relation to that, because, you know, in the next 1 or 2 years, I'll probably be having my own surgery. So
I know we should do a go hang out when I'm in the hospital. I'll be like, hey.
Let me see your boy parts before they're gone. Yeah, no, I don't know. But I was thinking of doing something like that with my surgery. I'm not sure, but I was considering doing it, which would be to document the sort of visual aspects of that whole thing as well. Because myself, well, no, I would probably document it and then, like, 3 or 4 years later release it, so that I could get over it being something that I'm really self-conscious about. Like, I even have videos on YouTube that are, like, from when I very first came out. I've released, like, 2 of them, but there's, like, I think 20 or so videos that I haven't released yet, and I'll release them whenever, 5 years from now or something. But I was just in a really bad spot and, like, looking terrible, and, like, it was just really, really bad, and obviously depressed and stuff. But I just documented that because I feel like it's stuff that people want to know. Like, I want to know what that's all about and what to expect. It's something that I think people want to know about, you know?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, because when I remember I went to, like, this informational meeting at my insurance, and there was all these other trans people there, and they were talking about their surgery experiences, and I didn't get a chance to talk to them because I wanted to know. I'm like, oh my God, I have you sitting in front of me. Tell me what it was like. And I never got a chance to do that. And I kind of need to go to some of my local PFLAG meetings, because I think a lot of them go there. Because, I mean, I'm not scared about the surgery. I'm just kind of worried about the logistics of everything and wanting to know the realistically, how much time do I need to be off work? And realistically, what is it going to be like when I have it done? You know, like, because people can tell you, and I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I really want the surgery. Like where I'm at now mentally, I'm ready. I'm totally ready to have it. I just want to lose some more weight, and then I'm ready to go. But I hope that the healing time, the recovery time, is easy.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's a very big step. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably end up getting my voice surgery first, because I would say that's probably the biggest thing holding me back. But
are you gonna go to South Korea for that?
I might go to South Korea, but I found one place in England,
Oh.
and they only charge like $3,000 or $4,000, but I'm not so sure because it's not something you want to fuck up, obviously. So I'll have to try and look into that and see if it's actually good.
Yeah,
but,
I would have like this like crazy voice. Like, hi guys.
Yeah, no, it could be like worse than it is now. That would be horrible. I'm trying to work on my voice, and I do it. I'm doing it like in the shower and stuff now, and also like when I'm reading like news articles, I'll read them out loud to myself, and I'm trying to improve my voice. And actually, I'm kind of hopeful that I'll get to where I want to be in time. And then if so, then I'll just be like, oh, I have all this money I can use on like a brow shave or something. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it takes time. It takes time to work the voice. It takes a lot of practice, I think. That surgery, it just scares me to death. I would be like you, I'd be like, oh my God, what if it like screws up my voice even worse? Or like what happens if like it didn't take? Like I spent all this money, went through all this crap, couldn't talk for a year, and then my voice sounds like the same.
I don't think, no, with the one in Korea, I'm pretty sure they have a basically perfect success rate, like like there's demos and stuff on YouTube. So I don't think that would happen with that one. But yeah, I don't know how I feel like about paying just like less than $5,000 for voice surgery. It's like I'll just pay an extra like $5,000 on top of that and get like a much higher chance of it going well.
Yeah, because will it destroy like your singing voice?
I don't even have a singing voice now, so that's not a worry for me because I can't sing.
That would be a worry for me. I wouldn't want to lose my singing voice.
You have a singing voice? Sing me a song.
No. No, I can't sing, but I'm just thinking. Yeah, I don't know. God, that's something else we should talk about in our next hangout. We should talk about surgery, like surgeries and all that, because that's always fun to talk about.
We definitely should. But we went from transphobia to suicide, and then we backtracked and started talking about surgery. So it's probably time to end this video for this time, and I guess that will conclude our episode 2 of the Colette and Eva / Eva and Colette show.
As I dance. Whee! We need some I had tons of fun. I can't wait till we do our next one.
Yes, it was super fun, and everybody, if you have anything you think is interesting to talk about or some suggestions, you can leave that in the comments, and we can heavily consider whether to discuss that on the next episode of the show. So take care, everyone.
Bye.